Okay, Shelf here again, and let's have a under 1 hour in actual short video for once, right? So as promised, since I made 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago those very extensive guides about the game, about Dragaea, Legend of Dragaea, I will now go over the changes that happened since then, because right now my guides are like 30, maybe even 40% not actual, like not usable anymore, because of the extensive changes and fixes, and almost of all of them are better, okay, that the dev has made since then. So I will cover especially things that actually changed my instructions and my tips about the game, okay? Let's quickly go over everything. So, all bosses are not affected by Doom, but instead deplete a larger chunk of life, very independent of the boss. Okay, so what this means is, Doom was way too effective at killing normal bosses. They just disappeared like any other enemy. But the last 3 bosses of the game were completely immune to Doom, making the skill, well, unusable against them. So now, it's a very good change. Overhaul the crit chance calculation, hit chance, okay, just better numbers, increase the regular cost of skill training. Yeah, skill training was way too cheap, the game was way too easy because of it, so now it's more expensive. Maximum amount of each material you can hold is increased, okay, you can farm for longer or at very high levels. Command equip items now sell for 1 depending on their tire. Yeah, this is because getting money was way too easy. Like, even on the hardest settings, you still had an absurd surplus of money and almost never had gold money problems. Now, well, you will have them. I am doing a hardest run for the first time currently, and I have been noticing this. You have to farm for a considerable amount of time if you want to upgrade the buildings and etc. Equip shops now sell on a minimum of uncommon items. You will no longer find common items in shops. Yeah, so in general, the shops were completely useless for most of the types of equipment. Now they are better in general. Cost of purchase material have been directly increased. Yes, again, something to go against the fact that money was too abundant. Fix the katana parent double technique. Oh, yeah. So remember that I said that double technique from katana, the perk, I've activated every single ability and it was extremely broken. Yeah, so now it only works with melee abilities. Now it works as it's supposed to. So yeah, it's a nerf, but it's a good thing. Fixed armor perks, yeah, okay. So now all of those armor perks that I said were useless because they didn't work, well, they work. You have to actually check your stats and see how much they increase, to see if they are useful to you, to see if they are worth it, but now they actually work, so you can use them. Fixed perk and to critical loss only have yeah, this is not really relevant because no one was actually using a a perkin without any weapons equipped, right? But, well, it's a fix. Fix sense perks, double check, okay, just bug fixes. Fix security perk, hidden compartments, just fixes. Lucky stats effects. Oh yeah, so lucky from the spell luck didn't do anything. Well, now it does. That's a good thing. Fix the last 2 tiers of leaf items wrong. Yeah, just visual fixes. Let's keep going. We have to make this quick. You can now enable see equipable in the inventory filter, UI quality of life stuff. The inventory filter button will be highlighted yellow if a change was made in the filter. Okay, sure. Thorns and reflect. Okay, so yeah. Remember that thorns and reflect were almost completely useless. And okay, so 2 things. Number 1. Thorns and Reflect were extremely weak for players, and at harder difficulties, they were absolutely useless. They did no damage. And a lot of monsters, especially on the Spire, would just demolish you. Like, if they had high numbers of thorns, you just got destroyed. Sometimes. So now, monsters won't really kill you with Thorns and Reflect. And now Thorns and Reflects are an actual good stat for a player. Now it's a viable strategy. A pure tank can basically kill anything that attacks it by just reflecting and thorning back, okay? So it's a very decent stat now. You still have problems with killing things that don't deal damage to you, right? But it's a good thing. So now they are useful. The amount of thorns reflect the game naked penetration, yeah, this is to balance this out, and it's a good stat now. It's a decent stat. The unique effect of Thorn Ring, yeah, same thing. Lightning, Moonblade, Moonblade Plus, Charge, have been removed from random ability pool monster in the post-game dungeon. So, remember when you just got one shot by hundreds of millions damage abilities in the tower? Well, that's not going to happen anymore because those abilities that scale out of barrier or health have been removed from those monsters. So there won't be random outlier damages that kill you even though you were already supposed to be strong enough to be getting through those areas. Anyway, added a button at the title screen that takes you to the official wiki, okay? Official wiki. You can now view a save file's word setting from that scene. Quality of life stuff, UI, skill training now only requires chromatic dust level, okay? Poison, shed, and burn stats effects now have a max stat of 40 each. Okay, so poison, shed, and burn have been overhauled, so instead the 1% of our magic power if poison and burn or million attack shed multiply blood make dots effects is about enemy. Okay, so dots were, as I told you in the guides, completely useless. They did so little damage that there was no point in using them. They still, especially later, they still deal way less damage than just using normal attack abilities, but now they are useful. Now they deal a considerable amount of damage, and if an enemy has, I don't know, like too much resistance or too much defense, or even, especially, yeah, if an enemy has too much defense, or if an enemy has, like, it's very hard to keep hitting them, if you can apply a lot of debuffs on them and a lot of these dots, well, it's actually decent damage now. Now they are useful. Your save file icon will not be a golden tome if you have played the game, sure. You can now view dungeon logs of the last 10 dungeon runs in the dungeon results menu. This is one of the best things he has added, because now when you die, when you finish a dungeon and you die, you can check the log after dying, so that you can see exactly what's killing you and how and why, and see how your damage is doing, which is something that was impossible before unless you were paying attention to the dungeon and pausing all the time. So this is very, very, very good. Fixed description, fixed the ground dungeon achievement, okay. Fixed workshop description, okay. Nothing really that important there. The Dagger Master perk now calculates melee attack after the bonus from Winged Sandals. Okay, this finally makes... Remember I said the Dagger Master was just an inferior version of the club perk that gave you defense to damage? Yeah, so now Agi to damage is properly working with the sandals that increase it by an absurdly high amount. So now Agi-based characters can also get very high damage numbers from that perk. Now it's an actual good perk. We are still waiting for the dev to add some perk that transforms, I don't know, magic defense or maybe something else into ability power. Not ability power, sorry, magic power, magic damage. Because currently, because of these two perks that I mentioned, physical damage is way higher than magic damage. So we really need a perk that can, do the same thing but for magic casters so that the damage is balanced out. Fixed thorns reflect scaling of monsters so it's no longer wonky. Yeah, okay, so yeah, like after the rework on thorns reflect, monsters started just destroying players because of it. So he just basically removed thorns and reflect from most monsters so that it stopped happening. Thorns reflect on monsters has been directly reduced. Yeah, same stuff. Okay. There are now 10 tiers of utilities. They have been added to the drop tables of the shop. These will make consumable items, utilities in dungeons actually very good because they were not that useful before if you already have a lot of healing and res and whatever. Heavily adjusted stats of utility, sure. Monsters have 0 thorn, yeah, as I said. Reduce the Dragaea cost of skill training per level because it was a little bit too much when he increased it. Fixed soft locking, yeah. Fixed items, okay, just some bug fixes that were not very nice. There are now 10 tires rings of saves. They have been added to drop tables. Yeah, this is very important because basically you were only able to have decent bonus stats from rarity on these kinds of items that are listed here if they were unique legendaries, because then they could go up to tier 10. Normal capes and rings and whatever, they could only go up to tier 5, so they were very weak compared to the other options. Now you have more flexibility in that regard. Increase the base stats amounts on our rings and capes. Yes, because rings and capes were basically irrelevant in terms of stats. Now they give a little bit more. We have been discussing, me and the dev, about making capes, for example, a type of armor. So like giving certain capes medium, light, or heavy armor status so that your armor masteries can actually affect them and multiply their values. Because as you know, the base stats of your armor gets multiplied by your armor mastery. But rings, capes, and offhands are not considered armor, so they are not multiplied by anything. So while your, like, let's say you have 500 armor mastery, then your chest plate or your helmet that gives you 10 defense, well, it's giving you like 5,000 defense. Now, your robe, your mantle that gives you 10 defense, well, it gives you 10 defense, which is irrelevant, non-existent, useless. So yeah, let's see how that develops in the future. Of course, in the early game, those numbers can matter, but after you get to level like 100, 200, 300, those numbers start to be completely irrelevant. Melee and magic accuracy keeps the bumps. Yeah, so accuracy was something that was lacking in the game, especially for higher difficulties, because monsters had way too much dodge and you had way too little accuracy. So now it's like, now you don't need 3 Omega Brights to be able to... Oh, no. Omega Brights are for you dodging the monster. Yeah. What happened was that skills that were undodgeable were way more important, way stronger than skills than any other skill, because it was very hard to hit very high level monsters because there wasn't enough accuracy in general. Now there will probably be. Some monsters now have perks. They have this is very interesting, nice, dynamic. So now monsters can have the same perks as we can, which makes, especially in the post-game dungeon, things very interesting. You can die from some dumb stuff, sure, but it's a fun random. It's like a nice mechanic to have, because it's not a, let's say, just random number kills you. No, it's a random funny effect that the monster just had, because that may have a chance of actually killing you, which is interesting, especially because we are talking about very late game stuff that is supposed to be challenging, right? Fix the names, rings of capes, fix staffs, perks, staff master not keeping a bit. Okay, so remember the staff master, the level 100 perk for staffs, it was not working properly, apparently. Now it's good that it is, because if it works properly, which it now is working properly, it is one of the strongest perks in the game, so it's very good. Fix the effects of multiple Omega Brights, nothing problem. Okay, so weirdly enough, using more than one Omega Bright, initially, using one Omega Bright was... Actually, initially, Omega Bright was supposed to reduce 30%, but it was reducing only, I think, 3 or 10%. Then he fixed it, but then they started not stacking properly up to 90% if you have 3 of them. But now everything is fixed. Now you can use three Omega Brights and you'll start dodging way more hits from enemies, especially on higher difficulties. Okay? Save for import exporting. Yeah, this is very nice. You can now filter items. Very good quality of life, UI stuff. Adventure tooltips that display character info during dungeons now updates in real time. So now you can just hover, keep your mouse over your character in your during your dungeon runs, and it will show you the experience bars changing without you having to look again. It just changes real time. So it's a very nice thing, because we all always wanted to be able to see how fast that bar is going up, right? Activated wax description is now whack with your weapon or first and activate random blah blah blah. Yeah, so this is what I explained to you guys, that even though activated whack said it activated only magic abilities, abilities that had heal ability or buff ability written on them, well, they are also considered magic abilities for some things, even though they don't say they are. So now activated whack actually tells you that it's any non-melee, not just things that say magic. Localization errors, okay, and that's basically it. So the big thing about all of this, oh yeah, and also I don't know if this is already over, but yeah, that was a nice thing to do. So basically, what we have to see here is that the biggest thing is a lot of the status effects and perks that I said were completely useless are now fixed. A lot of status effects, you know, skills, abilities, and yeah, basically most things I said in my guides that were completely useless because they didn't work properly, well, they now work properly and they are useful. Most of them are not that good, you know, like they are not meta, let's say, even though this is a game where talking about meta is a little funny, right? Because it's not a multiplayer. But anyway, games will always have meta. So most of the things that I said were useless before, they didn't become the strongest things in the game, but they are now at least very useful. You can use them, they have its place. And I think that's it for today. Thank you for listening to me again and again and again. Consider subscribing to my channel if you watched the other two guides and you are interested in seeing future changes being covered as well. Because I will definitely keep playing and keep covering this game throughout the time, especially next year when Renoki launches that so exciting and waited for expansion. That's it. Bye-bye.